weeks in, and President Trump is already delivering big wins for the American people. Let's go through the facts. On the border, President Trump declared a national emergency, deployed the military, ended catch and release, and reinstated Remain in Mexico. And already, illegal crossings are down 95%. We are resuming construction of the border wall, and Colombia's president is now offering his own plane for deportation of illegal Colombian immigrants. On the economy and energy, President Trump unleashed American energy, declared a national energy emergency, and killed Joe Biden's radical electric vehicle mandate. Wall Street is booming, AI investments skyrocketed to $500 billion, and there's $20 billion flowing into U.S. data centers across our country. President Trump is restoring law and order. He labeled the drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and he is deporting criminal illegal aliens, and he signed the Laken Riley Act into law. Draining the swamp, President Trump signed more than 45 executive orders. DEI has been purged from the government and our military, and lazy federal workers have been ordered back to the office. And when it comes to free speech and transparency, President Trump took 12 times more press questions than Joe Biden did in a week, reinstated 440 silenced journalists to the press room, and ended government censorship. Promises made,
Promises kept. That's right. That's what it's all about. Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope you Patriots are all having a fantastic week. I can't believe it's Tuesday already. I can't even believe it's February already. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Good morning, Allison. Good morning, Bless. Not Blue. I know Blessa took a trip to Bloomington, Illinois. Hopefully you're having a good day. At least we had some good weather yesterday in that area, or they're not too far from us. So hopefully some good weather. Yesterday was such a beautiful day. And it's so crazy because today is going to be okay. Okay. I think we're going to have some stormy weather for the next 2 days, at least some rain in this part of the world. And then we're going to be back to cold temperatures again. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. I'm really hoping we don't get any more snow. But, it's probably going to happen because, of course, the only thing on my mind is gardening. And I've been so busy with work. I still have not started my seeds. I can't have a replay of last year. Last year, I started my seeds really early, probably too early. I had like full grown 5-foot long tomato plants by the time it was, transplanting time. And I had to keep moving them from little pots to bigger pots to bigger pots. And eventually they took over the entire house. And so this year I got to do things a little bit differently. I have not started my seeds yet, but man, I have to do it this week. I don't know how I'll ever find the time, but I must do it. And I'm still trying to figure out, I've got, flower seeds to plant. I've got vegetable seeds to plant. And, I'm trying to follow that calendar. And I will update everyone on Friday, where you should be in your gardening because it's getting there. We're getting there. Good morning, Tammy Jerry Hoover. Hope you guys are having a good morning. So much to talk about today that it's like my brain is frazzled trying to figure out where to even start. Good morning, Karen. We've talked a lot about USAID over the past couple of weeks. And, I have to say, even when I talked about it, 2 weeks or so ago, about how Trump was planning on tackling USAID and how USAID was just another arm of the CIA and how the CIA does its dirty work. Even then, even talking about it back then, never did I even imagine what all would be uncovered. So we're going to be talking about some of this. And I'm going to tell you right now, just like we so often say, these aren't really things that we didn't know. These are all things we exactly how point A to point B came across. We knew Congress passed bills. We knew we paid tax money. We knew we were funding Soros-based programs and Burisma and all this other stuff. We just didn't know how necessarily. And so now we know. So it's really just more validation of what we already knew. So we're definitely going to talk about that. Good morning, Nancy. Hope you guys are, and Karen, hopefully you guys are having a good morning. Fog vid. Somebody did a test to figure out what was in the fog vid. And if you know what I'm talking about with fog vid, That would be the really strange fog a lot of people are seeing across the country, and particularly people in North Carolina, South Carolina, complaining about severe illness from this fog. And finally, an agency went out and tested it and reported on it. And we're going to talk about exactly what that is. And I don't think you'll be too surprised. I wasn't surprised. We all know they're trying to poison us. So we'll get into that, of course. We're going to talk about Mexico. Trump is a great negotiator. We talk about that all the time. With you place tariffs as part of negotiation. It's the same thing as you place an item on Facebook Marketplace. You say you want $200 for something and you hope to get 150. It's really not that different from that. You start high, you bargain down, and Trump is a fantastic negotiator. Glessa says, I found a beautiful 12-foot bath on a ton of wildflowers in my backyard area. Oh, I bet that. And sorry, I can already see that the show is having some latency. So hopefully I will get that figured out as we move along here. Good morning, Patty. And so lots to talk about today. We're going to talk about, obviously, FogVid. We're going to talk about Canada and Mexico. I know I've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. Most of you probably think I'm crazy, and that's okay. And even Colonel Joe Adams, we talked about it a little bit, about setting the footwork for invading Mexico, for fighting an actual war against the cartels. And even though I had hoped that I was wrong and that, what I saw unfolding wasn't really happening, I think it is happening. And we're certainly going to talk about that because we have to. There's just too much going on to not talk about it. Earthquakes, I can throw this in really quick. Lots going on over in Greece. We've had weird earthquakes taking place all across the country. That all across the world. We've had volcanic eruptions, and not unexpectedly, being that we're at this 11-year solar cycle with the sun. The sun does, have some control over a lot of what happens here on Earth. And if you're familiar with Santorini, Greece, it's a beautiful, beautiful island. A lot of people go there for honeymoons and vacations, and they've experienced thousands of earthquakes. As a matter of fact, I think yesterday at one point when I checked in on it, it was over 2,000 earthquakes, and people are getting upset. They have not yet evacuated the island. There's a lot of people who think they should evacuate the island. There is a volcano nearby, although a lot of people are saying, these earthquakes don't, even though it is the magma, they said, moving, the tectonic plates, of course, settling in, they don't, their comments don't seem to think that it's going to be a volcanic eruption, but they think this is all leading up to a very major earthquake and a tsunami to go along with it. Apparently, this happened many years ago, and they're expecting that it could potentially happen again. And they're talking about the devastating consequences of what could happen if anyone is on the island of Santorini when this takes place. And so they have the government has provided extra flights out of Santorini, but they have not yet given an evacuation order. That's where it stood yesterday. Jay said there are literally thousands of earthquakes. Yeah, and it's totally normal, of course, to have thousands of earthquakes every year. But Jay, I wouldn't be talking about it if this wasn't an anomaly. And that's exactly what it is. It's an anomaly. They don't normally have 2,000 earthquakes in a 2-week period of time. So I don't know what's happening over in Santorini. We'll just have to wait and see. But I do hope that, as other people in that area suggest, that the government of Greece does evacuate people off the island, because if they have another devastating earthquake, I think they had a 7.7 some time ago, along with a major tsunami that was just completely devastating to the island. That was, of course, a long time ago. And people are really worried it could potentially happen again. So please keep those people in your prayers. Allison, I am outraged that the USAID would spend our tax money on programs such as 2.5 million on DEI in Serbia, 70,000 DEI musical in Ireland, 47. Yeah, we're going to go over all of those different figures. And a comic book in Peru, yep, $500,000. This, none of this is new, unfortunately. None of this is new. Good morning, Karen. over the years, we've always talked about frivolous government spending. I myself have talked a lot about how one time we spent $500,000 to teach Indonesian women, how to play cricket. We have all these weird programs that fund research where they're trying to breed animals with other animals, trying to create some weird interbreed of animals. There's all kinds of these crazy stories. But no one at those times ever blamed it on USAID. They always knew that these weird things were happening, but they never really broke it down how it happened, why Congress approved it. Then you talk to people in Congress, they're like, we never approved that. We don't even know what that is or why that's happening. But that's exactly how USAID works. And Allison, you're ahead of me, but we are going to get to that. And just lots of stuff going on. And obviously, you guys know that Donald Trump did withdraw from the United Nations Security Council. Finally, I think NATO is next. There's a lot going on with NATO right now. We've talked about this, also many times about Greenland. Trump is not giving up his aspiration of Greenland into the United States. He expects Mark says no, it's not going to happen. Europe says no, it's not going to happen. But I don't think he's going to give up anytime soon. I don't think he's going to give up anytime soon. And sorry, I'm looking at my connection. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I'm going to take a look at something. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on, so I apologize. My camera is like switching angles, and there's all kinds of weird stuff going on behind the scenes over here. We'll get it all sorted out, but I think I've got my internet issue resolved. Patty, we're going to get that figured out. That is something that Elon Musk suggested a long time ago. They're putting everything into place. We're going to make sure that Congress has time to read these bills, 1,500 pages and 72 hours. It's just not enough. And, your brain can't even absorb that much information reading these 1,500 pages in 72 hours. And a lot of it, of course, written very cryptically because they don't want people to understand what's happening. And it doesn't really matter anyway, because Congress signs off on these bills, and they sign off on these bills. And that's where USAID comes again into play. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but Congress will pass a bill that says, okay, we're going to fund, again, that $177 billion to Ukraine. Well, then it makes its way over to USAID's office. USAID's, okay, we've got $177 billion here to play around with. What do we want to do with it? Let's pay so much of this to the media in Ukraine so that the media will support Zelensky and no one else. They'll create hit pieces against his opponents. They'll fully support Zelensky. We're going to take some of this money and we're going to give it to let's say terrorists to come into Ukraine to help fight with Zelensky's forces. And then we're going to take some of this money and we're going to give it to the Azov battalion, those same guys that wear those swastikas. We're going to give it to them because we want them to be fully armed and fully equipped to also fight against Russia. We're going to take some of that money and we're just going to use it to give kickbacks to Congress, people who fought hard to pass this bill. And that is how USEF ends up screwing over the American taxpayer and why we have no control over government spending. It is exactly that. It is because of USAID. And this is just the beginning of the conversations. Like I said earlier, when I first talked about USAID a couple weeks ago, and I was talking about how Trump, was eventually going to tackle USAID and how they were that branch of the CIA, I never in a million years expected it to continue into the depths that it has and all of the ridiculous spending. And it's not even the crazy spending. And we're going to talk about some of the things USAID has paid for. It's not even about that. It's not even about them, breaking down the money and giving money to Peru or giving money to rock climbers or women to play cricket. It's not even about that. Those are things that USAID does. But it's more about other things. Look at the money they paid to support Burisma. Hunter Biden, by the way, there was, if you look, I'm going to give you the exact House bill here because I want to make sure we have it right. And I'll tell you what, it was House bill. Isn't that funny? I write stuff down. I can't even read my own reading half the time. And it was a lot of information. It was Senate Bill 2277, and that was for the U.S. Agency for International Development. They were paying journalists to report favorably for Burisma, and they were paying journalists to write these hit pieces against any opponents of Burisma, against any opponents of Hunter Biden or Devon Archer, who was Hunter Biden's business partner at the time. And if you go through and you read all of the details that were uncovered in the USAID files, there's a file there about that House bill. And it specifically states, that USAID designated so much money to these journalists, and the journalists were supposed to write out how Burisma was the best choice. They're all for clean energy and blah, 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 blah. Just a bunch of propaganda. It's just CIA propaganda. And within this paperwork, it clearly states, and this is exactly why Joe Biden, his pardons go back to 2014, because these documents are dated October 2014. And they very specifically state that, hey, there are two Americans on the board of Burisma, Hunter Biden and Devon Archer. And if you know who Devon Archer is, he was federally prosecuted for fraud. And Hunter Biden was receiving $50,000 a month to be on the board of Burisma. Now, Burisma paid Hunter Biden that $50 million a month. Man, I am all messed up today. $50 million per month to be on the board of Burisma. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And people, it's crazy to me to think about it. 10% going to Joe Biden. Can you imagine that? 50. I'm going to have to start all over because it is not even Monday. It's Tuesday and I'm all mixed up. Yes, $50,000 a month to Hunter Biden, not 50 million. 50. I thought that doesn't sound right. 50,000 a month to Hunter Biden from Burisma, 10% going to the big guy. And if you look at the paperwork from USAID, that's exactly what it says. It refers to Joe Biden as the big guy. And of course, we already knew this. It's just validation of what we already knew. Robert says the founders would require any bill not to be voted on for 1 year after initiated, which is a good plan. Alice said USAID is using their $30 billion budget to lever influence over other countries. And Mary says, good. Oh, good morning, Mary. Good morning to you. And yes, Allison, they absolutely are. In fact, if you go and track down everything that's USAID's done, going back to day one, and again, we already knew this. We might not have been saying the word USAID. We already knew. Remember all those years we always said our government, we paid to topple Gaddafi. We paid for what happened in Libya. We always knew our government was behind what happened in Libya. And no one could really pinpoint or go over the details of exactly who paid, but we knew that the United States government paid. We knew that the United States government paid for the uprisings in Syria back in the day, which is what started their 14-year war, remember? And the uprisings, which resulted in the loss of millions of lives, if you think about it, between Libya. These are the governments that you said paid to topple. Okay, we'll break down how they managed to do this. Okay, so let's say, and it probably goes back far more back than what I'm even thinking of here. Libya, we had Afghanistan, we had Iran, we had Iraq, we had who else? Of course, Syria, Ukraine, the country of Georgia, Venezuela. Now, those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. And now some of the documents being uncovered by Elon Musk and his team, which, by the way, anyone who wants to say, why is Elon Musk doing this? He's not supposed to be there. He's not. What do you think an NGO is? It's a non-governmental entity that is tasked with conducting these types of audits. And that, you can use an NGO for a lot of different purposes. God knows Democrats have been paying NGOs for a very long time. In this case, Elon Musk has waived his salary, but he has been tasked with these audits. And it's very important. It's very necessary. So think about what happened in Syria. Assad, of course, being the president of Syria, they had all of these uprisings that occurred. The rise of terrorism that took place within Syria, all paid for by the United States. And eventually, under Joe Biden, we reached the objective and Assad had to flee Syria. Well, what happened to Syria now? They're in the hands of, guess what? Terrorists that we paid. We funded, trained, and paid these terrorists. USAID gave them the money. The CIA told USAID, hey, let's take $500 billion of American taxpayer money, and let's give that money to form Al-Qaeda. Gee, imagine that. Now they were called al-Nusra at the time, and al-Nusra was the Syrian branch of Al-Qaeda. And we gave that money under Obama to al-Nusra. Remember, you guys, I've talked about this a bazillion times, and Obama referred to them as moderate terrorists. It's okay to fund moderate terrorists, just not the real terrorists. And so therefore it was a failed operation, largest failed operation ever in the CIA history. And we funded these people to go into Syria and fight against Assad. They wanted to, we told our American citizens, our government did, that we, the United States, were going into Syria to fight ISIS, but we never fought ISIS. That never happened. We actually worked alongside of ISIS and we fought as terrorists against the Assad forces. Millions of lives lost, of course. That always happens, doesn't it? And in Libya, look what happened in Libya. You guys all know the story of Libya. Gaddafi, believe it or not, was a good leader. I'm not saying that he didn't do things he shouldn't have done, but he was a good leader to the people of Libya. Libya was thriving under Gaddafi, absolutely thriving. They had their utopia of a country, for the majority of Libyans. And then we, the United States, we decided, oh, well, they don't want to, partake in the central bank. They don't want to pay us, the United States, money. Then guess what? We will overthrow their government. And that's exactly what we did. We paid for uprisings. I'm not just telling you this. These are documents that have been uncovered recently as Elon Musk and his team goes through the file of USAID. Now, we've always known these things were happening. we've always known these things were happening, but now we know how it happened. That's the only difference between then and now. Now we know exactly how the chain of command went. That Congress approves a bill, they approve the funding. They just don't know where the funding is going and how that funding is dispersed. They just didn't know. And now we know, and now we'll make sure that it never happens again. But it's not going to be an easy battle. I mean, this is exactly why the world hates us. It is exactly why people hate us. It is exactly why groups like terrorism continues to grow. It is why people in Iran chant death to America. It is all because of USAID and the CIA and what the CIA tells USAID to fund. Look at Iran. If you go back and look at pictures of Iran, you know, decades ago, women were running around in bikinis with their hair flowing. They were hanging out at the beach, you know, driving. Everybody just had a great time. You know, Iran was and is a beautiful country. Then, of course, we got involved during the Carter administration, and it all went to hell, right? And now look at them. You know, it's women are running around in black burqas. They can't sing, they can't play music. Look at Afghanistan, once a free country. And then what happened? We, the United States, get involved, and now what? You know, we have the Taliban going door to door, raping and murdering people, which is also happening in Syria, by the way, right now. Also, what we paid for. And then look at the propaganda arm. That's the most important part of USAID, is the propaganda. There have been so many documents uncovered. Remember how all this time we have always said we know the United States government pays for propaganda. We know that our news agencies like MSNBC, CNN, Fox National to some degree, how they all spread propaganda. We all know that it's taken some people longer to know than others, but we've always known that our news, mainstream news, is propaganda. Well, now we know how that propaganda came to be, because if you're like me, you know, all these years we've always thought, you know, gosh, you know, I don't listen to the news because it's all propaganda. We know the government's paying it. But then Congress, they'll say, well, we didn't pay for that. Where's the money coming from? Well, the money is coming from USAID, because again, again, they will write these House bills, Senate bills, etc. They get the funding. The funding goes down to USAID. USAID does whatever the CIA tells it to do. And the CIA says, okay, well, we have this much funded to go towards, let's say, clean energy. Well, what do? They take a portion of that clean energy money and they send it to CNN, and they tell CNN, all right, you need to promote clean energy. You need to promote the theory of global warming, and you need to make sure you kill any stories that go against that narrative. You know, and then let's look at social media. The same thing goes for social media. Let's say clean energy again. All right, well, you know, you said pays Mark Zuckerberg a portion of money and says, okay, you're going to use this money to make sure you promote your algorithms to say that clean energy, global warming is a top priority. It's so incredibly important. And anyone who makes a post against that narrative, you need to block them, ban them, jail them, delete them, etc. Punish them to make sure they can't speak out against this program, because this is what we're promoting at this time. Celebrities, that's how far down this goes. Celebrities. Then you take a portion of that money and you give it to certain celebrities and influencers, and you say, okay, despite the fact that you own this $300 million yacht and 5 of your own jets, we want you to go out and promote global warming. Oh, global warming is such a big deal. We need to shut down, you know, the beef suppliers. Oh, cows are bad. Let's all start eating bugs and worms. That all goes down to USAID. And, you know, it is such a bigger deal, I think, than even any of us know right now. It's going to explode more than it already has, because now we see the validation that everything we've always thought is actually true. It's actually true. We always knew it was true. We just didn't know how to connect those dots. And now we know. And some of the things that we're hearing, some of what's been being uncovered when it comes to USAID is absolutely unbelievable. And it's not even about the frivolous spending, it's about the fact that they conned Americans. Our government never told us. They never, as a matter of fact, not only did they not tell us, they banned us, deleted us, censored us to make sure we didn't even talk about these things. We always knew the Biden crime family was taking money from Burisma. We always knew they were getting money. We always knew that all of these biolabs were being funded in Ukraine. We always knew that there was sex trafficking and drug trafficking and organ harvesting. We knew all of these things were happening. We just didn't know how we as Americans were funding it. Now we know. That's what we know now. Now we know. And that's what this is all about with USAID. It is the knowledge that everything we thought was happening really is happening. I don't know what's happening. I'm trying to see if sometimes it'll give me notifications if somebody's flagging me, but I have to go to a different page and look at it. So we'll see what happens. It might, can you guys hear me now? I think, Rob, am I still frozen? Yeah, I have said too much, because they don't want us to know. The target on the head of Donald Trump and Elon Musk is enormous right now because they are uncovering, and not only are they uncovering, all the dirty little secrets, they're telling everyone. They're telling everyone. It's like looking in somebody's personal little drawer and telling everyone what you see in there. And the government can no longer hide it. What is out, what was in the dark is now out in the open. And you said being at the center. Thank you, Allison. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Whenever I get flagged, I have these little triangles that pop up, and I had to go to another screen to see them. So thank you guys for letting me know that it's back. Um, and that's what happens when you speak the truth. It happens to me every time. I mean, I know you guys know this. It happens to me every single time we start talking about stuff like this. The show goes down. You have latency issues, because you hit those words that are on the algorithm. And you said is going to be one of those big words. So I'm going to play a short clip from Marco Rubio, and I'm going to try to clear these flags out while I do that. Because when people report me, I can see these little flags pop up. And when they're there, I can't see your comments. So I'm going to clear these flags out. I've been reported 5 times. And so probably by the same person hitting the button, like, oh, that's all lies. She's an Elon Musk and Trump supporter. Let's just hit the flag button. But Marco Rubio gives some good insight onto USAID. And he explains why this is happening. And this is what we talked about 2 weeks ago or so. At that time, Donald Trump was trying to access the files of USAID. And you said at that time would not give them access. They said, nope, we're not going to do it. You, Donald Trump, even though you're our president, You have no right to come in and look at our files. Of course, that's what they were going to say. And they're going to protect the CIA dirty little secrets as well as they can. So let's hear it from Marco Rubio here.
Can it be reformed or does it need to die?
Well, that was always the goal, was to reform it. But now we have rank insubordination. Now we have basically an active effort where their basic attitude is, we don't work for anyone. We work for ourselves. No agency of government can tell us what to do. So the president made me the acting administrator. I've delegated that power to someone who's there full time, and we're going to go through the same process at USAID as we're going through now at the State Department. I think there are some, this is not about getting rid of foreign aid. There are things that we do through USAID that we should continue to do that makes sense. And we'll have to decide, is that better through the State Department or is that better through something, a reformed USAID? That's the process we're working through. There are things that are happening at USAID that we should not be involved in funding or that we have a lot of questions about, but they're completely uncooperative. So we had no choice but to take dramatic steps to bring this thing.
All right, so of course, talking about USAID, USAID, I call them USAID, as do many others. So we're going to talk about USAID again. Now, this is some of the ridiculous funding that we have, and again, this stuff is the small potatoes. The bigger issue is how we topple governments, how we use money that is appropriated for other types of expenses to pay media to carry a certain narrative, and how to squelch the any opposers of a certain narrative. So, and these are the small potatoes that have been uncovered. 1.5 million to advance diversity and equity and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. Yes, it's so important to American taxpayers about diversity and equity in Serbia workplaces. $70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland. That is called propaganda. 2.5 million for electric vehicles for Vietnam. Yes, because we as Americans really care that Vietnamese are driving electric vehicles. 47,000 for transgender opera in Colombia. 32,000 for transgender comic book in Peru. 2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. And I'll save it for a minute. 2 million for sex changes I said that in Guatemala. 6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for a non-profit linked to designated terrorist organizations, even after an inspector general launched an investigation. Millions to Eco Health Alliance. We talked about that yesterday, which was involved in research in the Wuhan lab, creating what? Bioweapons. They admitted, in my opinion, that COVID is a bioweapon, which we all knew it was. No news there, just more validation, and then funding to print personalized contraceptives, birth control devices in developing countries, hundreds of millions of dollars to fund irrigation canals, farming equipment, and even fertilizer used to support the unprecedented poppy cultivation and heroin production in Afghanistan, which of course those proceeds benefit the Taliban. And yes, Dottie, our veterans are living on the streets. Yes, that's right. And we're paying for poppies in Afghanistan. But what I want you to think about, these are what this all means when you think of this in the larger scale, this is the destabilization of these countries. That's what this is about, destabilization. And you may not have looked at it this way in the past, or maybe you have. When we instill these DEI type initiatives, LGBTQ initiatives in other countries, it destabilizes their economy. It causes uprisings. It leads to a lot of instability because a lot of these countries are largely Christian, and a lot of these countries are absolutely against being, all this wokeness and liberalism. And then what happens is we introduce these programs to cause instability within the people, very much like what they've done here to our own country. Because here in our own country, we know that DEI initiatives and wokeness has really divided us as the American people. We are so severely divided by these different policies. And I would be very angry if I was someone who was in the LGBT community, knowing that our government funded programs in the United States for LGBTQ, for DEI, for wokeness, as not because the government cares about these issues, they don't. It is to create instability, to cause chaos, to cause us fight amongst ourselves. That's what it's all about. They have done this to your children. They've instilled all of these woke policies in our public schools to cause us to hate each other, to cause chaos, to cause instability. Because as we all know, united, we're stronger than the government is. If we were all happy and peaceful and agreed on everything, everything the government tried to do to us, we would rise up against it. But instead, they come up with all of these policies because, there literally is a think tank somewhere in the CIA that says, what can we do to cause instability in America? What can we do to cause instability in Guatemala or in Libya or in Syria? And how do you do that? You play up people's religions against each other. You play up their values against each other. It is really you have to look at the bigger picture that our government under the Democrat regime, they have caused this hatred between Americans. It didn't have to come to this, but this is how they control us. And we've all played into it. We've all allowed it to happen. And this is exactly why the world hates us. They hate us, and they have good reason to hate us. I think a lot of people in other countries are kind of waking up to see that a good portion of the American people don't agree with Democrat policies that harm people in other countries. But think of the lives lost, through the CIA and through USAID and all these different programs that we have. It's really unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. Allison says, I believe every penny of tax money should only be spent to benefit Americans. If individuals and foundations went to give aid to foreign countries, go ahead, and not our tax money. That's going to change, Allison. As I said, Elon Musk proposed a program before Donald Trump was even elected that said, you know what, we're going to place every bill on the government website. Every American can log in and look at it, all 1,500 pages, if that's what it is. You're going to see where every tax dollar goes. You're going to be able to log in and say, okay, instead of it being, USAID's dirty little secret with the CIA, you're going to be able to see everything. To some degree, of course, there's still going to be some things they can't show us for national security reasons. And you know what? We're pulling it all in. Look at the money we've given to other countries. This is what's crazy. I am aggravated enough about all of the money the CIA has paid to cause instability in all of these countries. And that's what all of these little small potato funds, it's all to cause instability. It's all part of the larger picture. And this is some of our taxpayer money that went to foreign countries in the past 4 years. We gave, and Allison, as you said, while Americans struggle, this is the money that we're sending to other countries. Let's see, $295 million to Mexico, $324 million to the Czech Republic, $334 million to Estonia, $339 million to Lithuania, $375 million to Poland, $397 million to Romania, $431 million to Bulgaria, $471 million to Tanzania, $536 million to Pakistan, $731 million to Colombia, $809 million to the Philippines, $998 million to Somalia, $1 billion to Lebanon, $2.2 billion to Iraq, $2.3 billion to Jordan, $6.1 billion to Afghanistan, even after the Taliban took over, $6.3 billion to Egypt, $2.6 billion to Ukraine, $8.5 billion to Israel. And, they don't list Canada, $35 million or so to Canada. And this is where your tax money's going. It's not, think about it this way. We are the third world country. Look around us. Look at our infrastructure. Look at our old airports. Look at our old railways. And then look at somebody pointed this out the other day, and I'm like, that is such a good point. And again, media propaganda, that you see what they want you to see. Look at Ethiopia. Okay, many people consider Ethiopia to be a third world country, right? People think of Ethiopia and they think all these, starving children, all of these people living in terrible, desperate conditions, living in grass huts and shanties and so on. Well, if you look at the country of Ethiopia, it's very misleading. Yes, there are areas of Ethiopia that are extremely poor. However, if you look at the big cities in Ethiopia, they are they look like Dubai. I mean, seriously, their infrastructure is 1,000 times better than ours. They don't have houses falling down. They don't have a Dollar General that's in some old building that was a warehouse back in the 1800s. I mean, it is absolutely insane. And yes, Allison, air traffic controller towers. Our infrastructure is so old. Even if you go and look at Ukraine, look at Ukrainian gas stations and grocery stores, they are far superior to ours. Go to almost any European country and look at their infrastructure, far superior to ours. Our government wants to spend money to fund everyone but the United States, everyone but the United States. Because you know why? Because I'll bet you anything, I can't prove it, but I'll bet you anything that out of those many millions of dollars to each of these different countries, some of that money was a kickback to whatever congressperson voted to fund these countries. I can guarantee you there were kickbacks going back into Congress. Congress should be audited. Every member of Congress should be audited. We need to know exactly how much money they have going into office. And then we need to know where every penny goes that goes into their bank account. Where did it come from? Do they have offshore accounts? Speaking of, remember Stacey Abrams? There was a story about her, I remember, I don't know, a year or so ago, where, they were looking at her tax information. And when they were looking at her tax information, she had made $109,000 a year. And then after she was elected, her salary went up into the millions. It's like, where did the money come from? How did she go from $109,000 to millions of dollars in her bank account? It doesn't make any sense. And that can be said for so many people within our government. We need to know how much money they make. Where's the money coming from? And I can guarantee you it's coming from you. You get up in the morning, you're going to work, you're working really hard, and 73 cents of every dollar you have is stripped away for you going into taxes. The taxes go to your government. Your government votes on these bills. They send all the money to a organization part or a branch, like you said, and then the CIA tells you, oh, we've got all this money in tax money. Let's send it to terrorists. Let's use it against the American people. They used your own tax dollars against you. It's absolutely ridiculous. And yes, Joe Gitmo, for all these traitors. Absolutely so. Fred, I'm cutting in and out. That is because they don't want me to talk about the truth. That's what it's about. They don't want me to talk about the truth. And it is the truth. You have paid for your own demise. Your tax-paying money is used against you. That money is going to pay the media to censor you, to social media platforms to censor you. They use it against us, and we continue to pay it in. And we're doing exactly what the Democrat regime wanted us to do. They instill all these woke policies to make us fight. They've paid for these woke policies out of your taxpayer money, and they did it to cause instability within our own country, just like they caused the instability in all the other countries I just talked about. We have really done a job, our Democrat regime, in destroying the world. We have all of this fighting in the Middle East, a lot of that tied back to the American government. All this crazy wokeness in Europe causing such instability in all these countries, and all this uprising. Remember the uprising that took place in the country of Georgia just recently? We've talked about it on the show in the past. And, guess what? All paid for by your tax dollars through the CIA. Absolutely paid for by us Americans. And the same for Venezuela. Remember when Venezuela completely went under, the country went bankrupt? The Venezuelans were eating out of trash cans. They were burning their money to stay warm. And remember all the uprisings that occurred that led to that situation taking place, all paid through your taxpayer dollars. All of this information has been validated, has become transparent through Elon Musk and his associates, the what do they call it? The Department of Government Efficiency, going through these files. They're exposing everything. I really hope that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are prepared for what's coming their way, because there's going to be a lot of really angry and upset people that all of this information is coming out. And again, going back to Burisma and how you said they funded Burisma, they funded journalists to support Burisma, and of course Burisma paying Hunter Biden $50,000 a month so that he could get the support of the CIA to pay the journalists to support Burisma through his father, of course, the big guy, Joe Biden. It's all coming full circle. All of it's coming full circle. And of course, these documents dated October of 2014, again, going back to Joe Biden's pardons for 2014. Also the same time in 2014, when we replaced the Ukrainian government through these uprisings, putting the puppet actor Zelensky into place as their president. We've always known he's not a real person, and he's definitely not a real person. Not a real president, I should say. Sorry, I didn't have my phone. I didn't have my phone muted. So that's one of the things, to talk about. There's so much more to talk about. We'll be talking about this as it continues. And I know I am being censored right now. I can see the little things popping up. Joe says YouTube is working fine. I would imagine if you're over on X, everything should be fine. A lot of you guys are on Facebook, and Facebook is the last place you should be watching this show. They say they don't censor anymore, but they absolutely do. So if any of you ever want to watch the show, the best place to watch it is on X, because over on X, from what I understand, they never have any latency issues over there. So that's something to think about. We don't have a whole lot more time, about 30 minutes. So many other things I want to get into. We will continue talking about. Thank you, Monica. She said X is fine. The difference is Facebook has a lot of algorithms, and when you say certain words, it hits their algorithm, and then it causes latency issues. And then you have people on Facebook who are continuously censoring, live active people who report live shows. It happens to all of us who do podcasting, not just me. And so when you're on Facebook, you have to deal with all that latency, the reporting, the flagging, the algorithms. YouTube is probably worse. Their systems aren't just as fast as catching it. They'll delete me later. And then X, everything's free and clear over on X. So if you don't have an account over on X, please go over and create one. That is the best place to watch a show. I don't even know why I do it on Facebook, but because I continue to have problems. But we will be talking more about USAID or USAID, however it is you say their name. We'll be talking about it more, and we'll be covering more information as it is revealed. And they're just at the tip of the iceberg. I think the bombshell, has been the information that's been revealed, all again, just validation of what we already knew. We already knew our government was responsible for toppling the economies of so many other places. And that continues. They're working very hard right now in Ireland to create instability in economical disaster so that we can, again, replace their government. It's going to happen. Jay says, this was my job for years. I had no idea, Jay. We'll have to talk about that. And let's see. Jay says, connection issue. Most likely the server that FB uses is having. No, Jay, I always love your positivity, but it is not Facebook's server. It is definitely algorithms, because it happens to me every single time I talk about things that they don't want to talk about. But that's exactly what USAID pays for, is for that latency and for that people to flag it and for it to be censored. That's government paid. We know it all happens. Some of the other things I want to talk about, Greenland. Again, we talked about Greenland a little bit this morning. I'm going to talk about Mexico in a few minutes, because there's a lot going on with Mexico. This situation with Greenland is going to heat up. And the reason why is that NATO is going against the United States. They are turning against us. We are turning against them. Now, we've always known that Donald Trump was thinking about withdrawing from NATO, and he did withdraw from the UN Security Council yesterday. We all knew that was going to happen. And I really do think a large part of why they went through the lengths they did to make sure he didn't win in 2020 was because they knew he was going to withdraw from the WHO. They knew he was going to withdraw from the UN and from NATO. Now, what's happening right now with Greenland, it's turning into something that's so much bigger than acquiring Greenland. And that is that the European Union, the European Union the European Union has stated that they are thinking about putting, some type of sanctions against the United States. They're talking about how in Greenland that NATO is going to, sorry, I'm trying to silence my phone. They're talking about how they're going to bring NATO troops into Greenland to protect it against the United States, against Donald Trump. And in doing so, Donald Trump said, well, if I see any mobilization of troops inside of Greenland, I'm going to take, sorry, my thing keeps beeping at me, so I apologize. It's throwing me way off. But anyway, Donald Trump said that he's potentially going to throw some tariffs against the European Union, against different countries in Europe over this battle over Greenland. Now, will we ever acquire Greenland? I don't know. I really have no idea. I know that Donald Trump really wants to. How far are we willing to go to acquire Greenland? Here from a United States perspective, we need it for our national security. We really do. We need that for our national security. The other thing we need is for minerals. Of course, Greenland, very rich in minerals. Now, I read a survey recently that said that 60% of those living in Greenland do not want the United States to take over. They don't want us involved, with another 40% saying they would welcome the U.S. and to incorporate Greenland as part of the United States. So we'll see how far that goes. Let's see. Jay says, sorry, but Europe and the rest of the world need our economy, and they know it. They do know, of course they know. As a matter of fact, yesterday, is it Mark Rutte? Is he the head of NATO? He made a statement that said that Europe, we will not survive. We can't defend ourselves without the United States. And so we'll see how all this turns out. But there's so much talk about NATO bringing troops into Greenland in preparation for the United States to potentially take Greenland. And it's going to probably escalate, just like so many other things are escalating right now, because, Trump, he's a bulldozer. He has something on his mind and he does it. And just like these tariffs he placed, remember, everybody was so upset. 25% tariffs against Canada, 25% against Mexico. We're never going to have another avocado. Oh my gosh, gas prices are going up. Canadians aren't going to buy any American whiskey, blah, 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 blah. It's a negotiating tool, like we said yesterday, just a negotiating tool. And then look what happened. We had Mexico's president contacting Trump. And guess what? Now, all of a sudden, they are going to put 10,000 troops on their border to try to combat drug trafficking and combat drug trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, and they're going to combat illegal entry into the United States. And we're going to get into Mexico because there's so much more to the story. And then look at Canada. Of course, Trudeau. What did he do? He caved, didn't he? We expected him to. Why? He has no choice. His pipeline, like we said yesterday, his oil pipeline goes from the western side of Canada down through the United States and up into the eastern side. There's no straight way for them to take their crude oil from the west side to the east side. It has to go down through the United States and back up. And they're not going to mess with us too much. They need us. We give them money. We subsidize Canada. And so therefore, they have to work with us. So we knew that was going to work. They knew they were going to work with us. And so, of course, Trudeau caving, and they've decided to concentrate on what they called IBETs. It's like an international policing organization that's going to be a cooperation between the United States and Canada. And Canada also sending 10,000 troops down to our northern border to cooperate, try to make sure people aren't trafficking fentanyl, entering our country illegally, and so on. And what's most important, though, about Trudeau's statement is that he also classified the cartels as a terror organization. That is so incredibly important that he did this. And that goes to show that he and Trump were talking behind the scenes about what is getting ready to happen in Mexico. And some of you already know that yesterday it was reported Pete Hegseth sent in some reconnaissance missions into Mexico. And what it appears they were doing, they were sorties, and it's not typically normal that this happens. What they were doing is they were mapping out cartel locations. And what exactly does that mean? When we take our military aircraft into Mexico, and we had to have had permission from the Mexican government to do this. And so therefore we know that they are cooperating for us, which is exactly what we wanted them to do, is to cooperate with us. And they have allowed us to map out the locations of the various cartels. Now that we've mapped this out, we know where their locations are. We have it pinpointed on a map. Where do we go from here? What do we do next? The cartels are, they're not going to give up. They're not going to give up. This is billions of dollars that come into the cartels every single week. Some say every single day, billions of dollars to the cartels through trafficking drugs, through trafficking humans, through these illegal border entries, which, speaking of, going back to USAID, which we were talking about, one of the things that was uncovered is the money going into the cartels. There's a group, another NGO, non-governmental entity, we were paying them $600 million every 2 to 3 months to facilitate illegals entering in our country through the southern border. And so that's money. So under a Democrat regime, we were paying to facilitate the entry of these people. Remember all those caravans we saw? We paid for that. Your tax money paid for those caravans of people coming up our southern border and entering our country. When other countries claim, oh, well, hey, you United States under Donald Trump, you guys want to fight the cartels. Well, a couple months ago, you were just paying the cartels. That's true. That's all true. And we always knew it was true. Now we have proof that it's true. And so the situation is now, what are we going to do next? We talked about this, I don't know, weeks ago. Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard talked to us a little bit about it, I think last week and maybe even the week before, about what are we going to do? We have declared war on the cartels. How does that look to us, the United States? What does that mean? We've mapped out their locations. Why would we do that? If we weren't planning to attack the cartels in the country of Mexico, within their borders, why would we need to map out their locations? So then we got to start thinking about, well, what does it look like to send our military, to send our troops into Mexico? Are they going to be on the ground? Are they going to be in the air? Are we going to use drones? How exactly is this going to look? Now, we know right now, from what I'm understanding, down in the southern border, there is no movement. No one is coming across our border. We've got people on the Mexican side, we've got people on our side. And Colonel Joe Adams even said what we really needed, we needed American military, American Border Patrol to almost stand arm in arm. That's exactly what they're doing. I have photos, I have video of it in many sections of our southern border. We do have exactly that. We have National Guard, we have law enforcement, we have active duty military. What do we have? Like, was it 5,000 Marines, active duty Marines down on the southern border? And they are literally standing, 6-10 feet apart across parts of the southern border. Nobody's coming in right now, and things are about to go down. I don't know what that is that's about to go down or how long it's going to take. But what we have to really think about is it necessary? I think yes. I don't want to harm any citizens in Mexico. That is the last thing any of us want to do. Those are good people just trying to live their lives. But the people in Mexico, there's countless videos of people within Mexico saying, yes, United States, I hope you do something, because these cartels are keeping us from feeling safe. Our families aren't safe. Our kids are being recruited into these gangs. And, we don't have any way to make money. Every time we make money, the cartels come and they take the money out of our hands. Businesses are making videos talking about it. They're saying, well, we have to pay a certain amount of money every week to the cartels to be safe. If we don't pay them money, then we don't have safety. And so or we lose our lives, one or the other. And so I think a lot of people in Mexico will welcome the government coming in and attacking the cartels in some way. Attacking, though, is the key word. What does attacking exactly look like? And how can we do that without harming innocent people? And the cartels, now that they are designated a terror organization by not only the United States, if it was just us, the United States, that designated them as a terror organization, there wouldn't be a whole lot we could do. I mean, technically we could, but then we would, face, of course, the ridicule and criticisms from a lot of other countries. But now that Canada has jumped on board, and they have also said that, yes, we also declare the cartels are in fact a terror organization, that means there's a good possibility that we, along with Canada's facing their own problems with fentanyl and drugs coming through their country and cartel involvement. And together, is it possible that the United States and Canada together can form an attack on the cartels within the Mexican border? I certainly think that it's a good possibility. We map those locations for a reason. But what does that look like? What it looks like on Mexico is less concerning to me than what it looks like here in the United States. Because what do you think is going to happen if we conduct an assault, a military assault against the cartels within Mexico's borders? What is that going to look like here? Because we know that there are cartel members all across our country. I mean, they're practically for sure in every big city. They're also in a lot of smaller communities, and we know that. When Colonel Joe Adams joins us on Wednesdays, we often talk about cartels, and he has seen them out in Sullivan, Missouri. We know they're in Columbia, Missouri. We know they're in Springfield, Missouri. They are nearby. And what does it look like then? Are we going to face street wars, with the cartels in our own community? Because they're not going to just sit back and say, okay, we're making billions of dollars. This is our livelihood. They literally control Mexico. They control a lot of our highways and roadways and parts of the United States, including some of our law enforcement in certain parts of the United States. What exactly is it going to look like? Mary says, I need to go. X keeps it's cutting out. Oh, you're going to go to X. Yeah, if you guys are watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, it could cut out. If you go to X, that's probably not going to happen. Pam says, just a matter of time before we engage with the cartel. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good at all for anyone. Jay says, El Salvador agreed to take all illegal criminals and house them in their mega prison. Well, El Salvador can agree to do a lot of things, but we also know El Salvador, Guatemala, a lot of these Caribbean countries, Venezuela, they've all they've funded money to bring their worst of criminals into our country. Do I trust El Salvador when they say, oh yeah, send our most, our worst criminals back to us and we'll put them in our prisons and we'll pay for that? I don't trust it at all. Alice says they deputize National Guard so they can make arrests at the border. And we need every bit of manpower we can get down at our southern border. But I think we have to start looking at what this means to us. I was watching a video the other day, and quite honestly, I really didn't get it. I was watching it, I'm like, what is this guy talking about? Because it was a military guy, and he said, I'm a former colonel in the Marines, and he was at a grocery store, and he's like, I'm telling you right now, Americans, you need to stock up on water and critical supplies. And he wouldn't say why. I'm thinking, why is he telling us to do this? Like, well, what's happening? I don't feel like we're, in line for any kind of natural disaster right now, even though we have the threat of potential terror attacks. I don't think that we have to stock up for terror attacks. Those are pretty random. There's really nothing you can do, to prevent those, by stocking up water in your home. And then they were talking about, what are some of the other threats we've been facing? Oh, I don't know. I can't think of any threats that would, of course, we've always talked about nuclear war. Right now, things are pretty calm, between Russia and the United States. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin today. And so we're going to find out some information today about what comes out of that meeting. But I don't see any big threats against us right now. And then I started hearing, more information about these reconnaissance missions. And just think about this. Okay, we know of what happened in the past couple of days with Pete Hegseth sending over sorties they've not said that they're mapping out cartel locations. That is what someone told me that I know who is in the military. They said, no, they're mapping out cartel locations. That's why they're over there. And, that as far as I know, that part has not been released, or at least I've not read it myself. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, they're mapping out locations of the cartels for what? obviously we plan to act. I don't see there's any way against it. I think that the Mexican government, whatever happened yesterday after we placed those tariffs and we had the president Sheinbaum of Mexico talk to Donald Trump, I think they unilaterally came up with a plan that said, okay, the cartels, they're hurting us here in Mexico. They're hurting us here in the United States. We have to do something to stop this. I don't want this to happen. I know, you guys don't know me that well, but I love the people of Mexico. I love the country of Mexico, not the cartels, but the country. And I think we have to do every single thing we can, to diplomatically work this out. But what happens when diplomacy fails? Then what happens? Then we have no choice but to act. As much as I hate to see that or think about it, we have no choice but to act. And so that's something we're going to be keeping up with over the coming days and seeing what happens. And I apologize, my thing is still flagging me, so I'm still getting these weird little pop-ups on my screen. But we're going to be talking a lot more about what's happening over in Mexico, and I think we're going to hear more as the days go on. So we'll see how all of that plays out. And I know I don't have a lot of time left, so one of the things I want to talk about before we go today, and there's so many things to talk about, and we'll be talking more about Canada as well. They formed these what they call IBET agencies. It's the Canada United States Integrated Border Enforcement Teams. They're going to approach the border with a coordinated approach between the United States and Canada. We knew they would work it out, didn't we? We knew they would work it out. Canada is our friend. Maybe not Trudeau, but Canada is our friend. And we want nothing but good relations with Canada and Mexico. But the cartel is a common enemy between Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And I think the three of us countries to share borders together, we are going to come up with a plan to attack the cartels. What that will look like, I don't know. What we will see on our own streets, I don't know. And I'm not going to jump the bandwagon and say, everybody go out and buy big cases of water and prepare your family, get your guns out. I'm not saying anything like that, because we should always be prepared anyway for anything that could potentially happen. And I'm not going to have a show on Wednesday. Colonel Joe Adams is going to join us on Friday, and we're going to get into this a little bit more. So sorry to make you wait till Friday to hear from Colonel Joe Adams, but I have a lot of work coming up this week, and I will not be here, unfortunately, tomorrow. And I'll talk about that a little bit more before we head out. But something I wanted to jump into before the end of the show, and if you're just now joining, go back after the show has ended, go back and listen from the beginning. We talk in great detail about the funding that comes from the CIA, how it makes its way from Congress to USAID, for how the CIA gets involved, and how we use that money to topple other countries, to cause instability in other countries, and how all of these different things, the funds uncovered, are going towards that instability. And obviously talking about the borders between Canada and Mexico and what we can expect to see there. Something I wanted to talk about is the fog vid before we go. I only got a couple minutes left. I have to work today, so I can't be late. But I want to talk about the fog vid, because I'll tell you, we all said when we saw this crazy fog, like, what is going on? People saying that they are sick because of the fog in these different areas. And we know what the government does to us, how they experiment on us, and everybody's been very worried. So look at this quick video, and then we're going to talk about what this actually is.
See the fog? Those are parasites and bacteria. This is biological warfare. This is Nuremberg stuff right here. This is Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it's February 2025. And this is being sprayed on us in the dark of night. Right here. It's been tested by an independent lab out of Naples, Florida, and it's full of parasites and bacteria. And this could very well be why all the TB cases are coming open, and people are very, very violently ill. And we're being genocided. I also want to let you know that God has led me to a company that has released something completely natural that cleanses the blood of all of this. Parasites, virus, bacteria, and it's quantum. Goes right under the tongue and cleanses the blood. I'm starting it next week. If you want to start it with me, we can fight back and we can save ourselves from this. This makes me so sad.
We'll get to some of more of that, on Friday when we talk about this a little bit further, when we know a little bit more information. So think about this. They did a test on this fog, and that doesn't look like normal fog. People have been saying for quite some time now, when they see this fog come through, it's grainy. It leaves a film on their vehicles or on any surfaces. People are reporting sore throats and being sick and all kinds of other crazy symptoms. And I know I'm not going to pronounce this right. I know I'm not, but I'm going to do it my best. Serratia marcescens. I know that's not right. SERRATI however you pronounce that. It's a bacterium that was used in a U.S. Navy biological warfare experiment called Operation Sea Spray in 1950, where it was sprayed over San Francisco to test the city's vulnerability to bioweapon attacks. This experiment resulted in illnesses among residents, raising concerns about the safety and ethics of such tests. And if you're here in the St. Louis general area, you know that they sprayed Agent Orange across the city of St. Louis at one time. And I could say this probably has happened in many parts in the country over the years, that our government has, for whatever reason, decided that they wanted to test things on us, but they can't do it with our permission. So they're going to do it without your permission. Now, is that what's really happening with this fog? I didn't test it myself. I can't have no way to confirm it myself. But these are the stories that I'm hearing, that yes, an agency did test this fog. This is what they came up with. And if you look up this bacteria, I posted this on my personal Facebook page. You can look it up there. But if you have breathed in this, you will see that the symptoms to this bacteria are very similar to the symptoms people are reporting after they've experienced this type of fog. Sore throats, flu-like feelings. And oh my gosh, the complications can lead to blood clots and all sorts of things. Of course, those things are rare. But what exactly are they doing to us? Are they testing us, like they said, about against bioweapons, how people would react during a bioweapon type attack? It's really strange. And it's crazy to me that our own government would want to use any type of substance against us. But then you think, is the United States government? Is it another entity? Is it an adversary? Is it a form of terrorism? Or is it our own government experimenting on us? And the fact is, we really just don't know. And Pam says, who in their right mind would do this, knowing it would affect their own families? Well, Pam, that's just it. I don't know. I mean, we know it has happened. We know it happened in San Francisco with the exact same bacteria that's being found in this fog right now. We know that in St. Louis, they sprayed Agent Orange across the city of St. Louis. I'm only assuming the people that make the decisions pick a city where they know they don't have any family, but I don't know. I don't know that they care. I really don't know that they care. And again, does it go back again to something like you said, where back in the day, Congress was saying, okay, let's fund X amount of money into research, not knowing that research was against the American people. And now we've had some crazy fog in this area recently, but the fog was not like that fog. That fog, you can see there's like flakes and particles coming down. And, it's hard for me to believe that it wouldn't be our own government. I mean, does another country have do they have the ability to induce, this type of chemical fog here in the United States? I mean, maybe they have planes, or I would think if they had planes, we would see it. Maybe drones, we've had an awful lot of drones running around the country lately. I don't know. And I know this is a story that's going to continue to unfold, and I'm sure it's going to unfold like a snowball once word starts spreading that this was tested and that it is a known bacteria that was tested on Americans by the government in the past. So I think we're going to learn a lot more as it moves on. And what do? How do you face this? It is another story. Write to your congressperson saying, why does testing prove that this was seen in certain states? I don't know if it's every state, but in certain states, why are you doing this to us? Who approved this? what gives the government the right to experiment on Americans if that's in fact what's happening here? I can't see any other reason why they would release this type of bacteria through fog, into the United States. And do we trust the agency that tested it? That's another story. So there's a lot to look at there, and we're going to be talking more about it. Unfortunately, my time is running out. And again, if you're just joining the show, go back and listen to it from the beginning. We talked so much about USAID, had a few technical problems because they hit the algorithms over on Facebook. So X is always the best place to watch the show. I am not going to be here tomorrow because I have to work. I'm not going to go into the name, but we have a superhero movie we're working on right now, which is very important. And then I will be back on Thursday. So much more to talk about at that time. We're going to be catching up with Colonel Joe Adams on Friday. And I can guarantee you there's going to be a lot that happens between now and even Thursday and Friday. There's going to be a lot that happens because, man, it's moving at a snowball's pace, isn't it? With Donald Trump, he is a bulldozer. And, people are just attacking him, attacking Elon Musk. And I don't get it. I really don't understand it. Because to me, and maybe that's why I'm conservative and not a liberal, to me, I would be like, yes, get to the bottom of this, get to the bottom of where all this money is going, get to the bottom of why we're paying all these countries millions of dollars. Why are we not spending that money here in the United States? Why is our infrastructure so old? And we're giving, millions upon millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to countries who have far better infrastructure than what we have. We have our homeless population. We have veterans sleeping on the streets. We have children without good homes. We have elderly people who can't afford to survive, but we're paying billions upon billions of dollars to other countries and into these ridiculous programs that do nothing but harm Americans. We have to step up. And the only way to step up is to contact your congressperson and demand answers. And if we step up enough and we demand enough, eventually they'll have to address the problem. But how liberals and these different people are looking at what Donald Trump is doing and not saying, gosh, we want to know the truth. We want to see exactly what's happening, where all of our tax dollars are going. Instead, they just want to attack Elon Musk that he's not supposed to be there. However, Elon Musk, guess what? He was appointed by Donald Trump, who has the right to appoint anyone he wants. He can choose any advisor he wants to choose. And the Department of Government Efficiency is a real thing. It is a real thing. That's a real department. We look at all the NGOs, non-governmental entities that the Biden administration paid, the Obama administration paid. Trump isn't doing anything different. He isn't doing anything different. He is taking a group of people, and Elon Musk, by the way, waiving his salary, and they are tackling the issues that harm America the most. So we've got to do it. Pam says, this is Operation Warp Speed. You better believe it is. And this is just the beginning. And it's hard. You've got to trust the process. I was pretty aggravated last night when I saw that, Donald Trump had paused aid to Ukraine. And then, they reassessed the situation. Now we have started shipping more weapons to Ukraine. And I want to know why. I don't have answers as to why this has happened. Donald Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin today. We'll see what comes out of that meeting. But I don't know why we would start funding Ukraine once again. It's something I'm very much against. And I don't care if it's Donald Trump who made that decision or someone else. We have sent enough American money to Ukraine. It's time to stop. It's time to bring it in and help us within our own country. We need money in our pockets. We need aid, here for ourselves, not for other countries. So, all right. So that's enough for me today. Again, if you want to learn a little bit more about how USAID works and everything that's going on between the United States, Canada, Mexico, you have to go back and watch the show from the beginning. I hope you guys have a really great day. I hate that I won't be having a show tomorrow, but I'll be back on Thursday. And I hope you guys have a really fantastic couple of days. Stay out of the rain. And I will look forward to talking to you again. Again, I'm Tabitha with Tabs on Tap. If you like the show, please be sure to share it. Spread the truth fast.